Right folks, this is the second model I've made. Simple model, although this one being a little bit more fiddly. It's a bit more involved. This is the 2-speed model lathe. Like the other model, the simple saw, it's made to be driven by Mammoth and Wellesco model engines, or even clockwork or electric if you prefer. This is the simple 2-speed, just two different pulleys. Will be driven off a line shaft, which will again be Meccano, built to suit the layout of what will be a small workshop, probably about 6 models. Just show you the saw. I won't do a special video for this one. By the way, this is my first video, so I apologise if it's pretty rubbish. But this is the first simple saw. Again, freestyle. By that, no instruction books used, just simple. In most cases, just simple mechanics, if you can call it that. This utilises a base, a normal, fairly standard base. Well, it's quite old one. This one. Got a slot in it, and it just allows a clearance of a bush wheel there to spin through, as long as you align it correctly. You could do it a little bit more simply with instead of using a collar there, you could use a spring clip. Well, I don't think you can see this on a tiny spring clip there. Quite handy, but a bit ugly to use. But if you're going to make it out of bits you've got, you generally have to make it with the bits you've got. You see that it's driven off the back there with a small pulley, and that's very simple to make. But back to the lathe, a bit more involved, again made freestyle, although like the saw and indeed the steam wagon that you've seen the pictures of, pictures have been sourced just for a bit of reference, off the internet. This one does work. I'm doing the video this way instead of the quite poor mobile phone one, because it's pretty hard to hold and operate at the same time. But as I say, it's powered there. It's just nothing but just turning motion, nothing complicated at all. This is the tool bed, and I hope you can see it move from there. In fact, I'll just zoom in a second, see what we can do. Right, this is the tool bed. I hope that's the correct word, but you can see it moving over. Of course, it's just quite imaginary, really. It doesn't really work, although I suppose you could make it a little bit bigger and do something with light material, small tools, a drill for example, some balsa wood. But as you can see, this was quite fiddly to do, this one, but this was the latter one. It's after 20 odd years of actually making things out of Meccano, the first thing being the steam wagon, it takes quite a while to work things out, and some things end up being quite simple. And after you've done it once, you realise you could have done it a lot more simply. But it does work. That's that one. So that was the second one done. This tool bed here, I think they call that a tool bed. I'm not really an expert on lathes, but it's far better. It has a central rod to activate the bed when you turn the wheel here. If you can see there, there's a nut, a bolt and a nut. It protrudes slightly more than the others. It's quite it's about a 1/2 inch long bolt, but it's being used to effectively encapsulate a nut underneath on the rod to stop the rod moving. Sorry, to stop the nut moving on the rod, and thus the rod, when you turn the wheel, moving through the nut. That nut is connected with 2 of these angle brackets inside, facing each other. Which is connected to the base plate, and actually, as I'll show you now, it moves. Now this one does move rather nicely. I dare say I'm quite impressed with the end result, because of the effectively central rod and 2 tracks formed by these girder plates here. You can see the angle bracket there. There's another on the other side, adjusted with the slot that's available. You can just see the end of the slot there on that one, so it gives me a little gap. And the same here. Because of that, it's quite nice, good solid steady runners or tracks for the bed to move. As you can see, it runs nice and smoothly. That was after some thought, that was relatively easy to sort out, and as you can see in there's a collar. Obviously anywhere there's metal moving against metal, there's a bit of light oil. I use this because it was first out the cupboard, Express gun oil. It's a lot like 3-in-1, perhaps slightly bit thicker, but anything like 3-in-1 will do. Just a drop here and there on the bearings. But again, if you got those spring clips I mentioned earlier, you could have used the spring clip if you were using the axle, which is slightly larger diameter than the rods, the threaded rods, as you can see with there. That doesn't have to turn, so there's no problems with the overhang of the clips catching anything. The collars are very much more of a neater option, but of course screwing a grub screw onto a threaded bar doesn't generally do the threaded bar any good, really. The other bed was a lot more fiddly to do. No room for 2 tracks as such. In this case, just because I did have a few collars left, but I am running out of parts now, especially washers, I used a simple lock nut this side instead of a collar, with a washer adjusted suitably before locking the lock nuts together. A collar the other end. Again, I could have used the lock nut system or principle. Quite simple. 2 nuts locked together against each other, one suitably adjusted so there ain't too much play, using 2 spanners. The difficulty I had with this bed was trying to keep it actually staying level, more or less, while it moved. Because there's no 2 tracks like with the first bed, it kept tipping up. So a bit of jiggery pokery, put a few extra washers into active space just to lift it up out the way, so some of the if you like, the workings and the structure of it underneath allow a little bit more clearance. But you can probably just see, if I get it right, got 2 sorts of angle brackets here. A standard angle bracket is on the left hand side, which is just like that one there, and a longer one, a 3/0 angle bracket. There is probably a proper name for that, but the first side with this angle bracket, I used the slot, which allowed me a little bit more adjustment to give me more free play here on the track or runner. Now on the other type of bracket there's no slot at this angle, which it meant it was a really bit too close. So what I've done is another lock nut on the side there, which you can just see, I think. Just slightly loose that bolt, allowing a little bit of play, and it allows it to move up and down or left to right quite smoothly. Not as good as the other bed there, but quite smoothly, and it's only a model really, but it would have been a lot easier to do if it was a little bit bigger, but trying to keep to the same sort of well, for want of a better word, scale. There's plenty of ways you can do things slightly differently. Again, down to the parts, you've got these 7/0 angle, sorry, not angle girders, flat girder strips. You could use a standard 7/0 strip, just like these on the bed, but in 7/0. I have a few of them, not many in 7s. I have literally hundreds of 5s, but the 7s are being kept for a future, shall we say, project using a Mech 1, where 7s and 9s will come into very good use. Anyway, these sort of, I suppose, probably 1970s, 1980s plastic pulleys are used as spacers. There is a small washer underneath just to clear the brackets, mainly because I ain't got that many collars or washers left over. The collars or the washer would look a bit more in keeping. The same with the base plate there being yellow. I have some blue ones somewhere, and I have some yellow ones, and I think there's a couple of red ones in fact. Yes. Here's one of the red ones there. That's French Meccano. It's quite thick coating on that. But using what I have, I tried to keep the colour schemes to the red and green because I've bought an abundance of it a few weeks back from Ironbridge. A lot of it's rough, but it's all quite usable really. Over 1,000 pieces for 35 quid, cleaned up, and if there's any bent ones I'll straighten them when I need them. So that's why you can see the, shall we say, rather characterful finish to it all. These plates are actually out of an army multi-kit from the, I don't know, mid-70s I suppose. So there you go. I'll put some more pictures on later on, showing the build as it progressed of sorts, but it's quite a slow process anyway. Took about 10 hours to make this, taking pictures along the way, doing something one way, deciding you wouldn't do it that way, take something off, put something back on, and so on and so forth. So anyway, I hope the video's alright for you. I have very little in the way of editing software, and it would be easy if somebody else was operating the camera at the same time. Not a video man really, more of a stills person. But anyway, I'll try and neaten up the whole video. Other than that, just put up with the, shall we say, eccentricities. Oh, that as well. So, the next model, I don't know, thinking of a sort of like a fret saw or a hacksaw, but try a bit of variety. Once I get about 6, I'll put them together probably on a piece of wood and then drive them off the SE1 or the SE1A, I suppose. They're doing nothing at the moment. So anyway, have fun all, and get yourself some Meccano. It's good fun, although a little frustrating at times. Cheers.